Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So Easter is around the corner and I wanted to provide you with a really fantastic tart recipe for the occasion. And I'll also show you an easy way to decorate this tart to make it look extra special and springy. So we're first going to begin with the crust. You want to start here because the dough needs to refrigerate for at least an hour before you roll it out and bake with it. That will just prevent a lot of shrinkage in the crust and will also make it easier to roll out. All right, so in goes 1.25 cups of all-purpose flour, 2 tablespoons of white sugar, and then you also want to add 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Then you can just pulse this up until combined. Then we're going to add 1/2 cup of butter. Make sure that you've cut it into cubes and it's very cold. And while your machine is running, you can just add the butter a little bit at a time. And the idea is you want to create a course meal. Then you want to take 1 egg yolk and add 2 tablespoons of very cold water. So normally what I do when I'm setting out all my ingredients is I fill up a glass of water and pop it in the fridge, or you could also add some ice cubes to it. And that way it'll be really cold. If the water is too warm, the dough will get really sticky. And just whisk that up. With the machine running, you're just going to add it in a steady stream. You can pulse it a little bit. Basically what we're looking for is a dough ball, and it will form if you keep going. I'll show you. If it's too crumbly like this and you try to work with it and roll it out, it's gonna crack and it's gonna become kind of a mess. So just keep going, be patient. See, it's beginning to form. And I go until I actually see a ball. See, like that. See, this is like a beautifully combined dough ball. There is no butter that has not been combined with the flour. Then you want to take your dough ball and just press it into a disc and then wrap it up in some parchment paper. And the nice thing about this is you could do this the day before, so it doesn't need to be done the day of, and it'll be even better if it sits in your fridge overnight. Now luckily I made a second batch of dough this morning, so this is already refrigerated, ready to go. I knew you were coming. And I am going to put my tart in a removable bottom tart tin. This is like the best invention ever, because when we put our tart dough in here and it bakes and then we want to put it on our cake stand when we go to serve it, all we have to do is just take it right out of the tin. And if you really wanted to take it one step further, you could use a cake lifter to take it off the tin and put it on your cake stand too. You just want to roll it out to about 1/4 inch thick. This is the other reason why I like a French rolling pin. It's really easy to put the dough on top of the rolling pin and lift it up like that so that you can then fit it into your tart pan. I find it's hard to do that with the other types of rolling pins. Now the other thing I like to do is just trim the edges around so that when we flip this up, we're gonna have an equal amount of dough on all sides, which will just help as it bakes so that you don't have some parts that are thicker or thinner than others. Then take the palm of your hand and just kind of press against it. I know there's no such thing as a corner in a circle, but it's almost like you want to get your hand into the corner of the circle, if that makes any sense, just at the base of where the crust is gonna rise up, just so that it's really nice and tight. Okay, take your knife and just give it a trim. And see, this is why it really helps to have your dough nice and chilled, because this part just goes so much quicker. See, it just basically fits right in there. See, and we have this beautiful crust now, all ready for the oven. Then at this stage, take a fork and go ahead and just pierce the crust here, because this will prevent it from rising up in the oven as it bakes. So we are gonna put this in the freezer for 10 minutes, and then we are going to pop it straight away in the oven at 425 just until it's set and golden brown. For our lemon curd, we are first gonna begin with 6 egg yolks. Now, I save the whites because I think they make for a great scramble. So if you wanna make like an egg white scramble for breakfast, add a little Gruyere cheese, some spinach. It is a great little breakfast. Then make sure you're doing this in a heat-safe bowl, because the next step involves pouring the hot sugar water inside this bowl, so you wanna make sure that it can withstand heat. To our egg yolks, we're gonna add 1/3 cup of cornstarch, and then just whisk it up until you get a nice yellow paste. So in this pot, we're gonna add 1.5 cups of water. It can be room temp, doesn't matter, and 3/4 cup of sugar and a little pinch of salt. Then you just want to heat this up on medium-high, stirring it until all of that sugar is dissolved. We don't want to pour all of this sugar water into our eggs all at one time. We want to temper the eggs, which is just to mean bring them up to temperature of the water, but in a slow, measured pace. So if you just add a little bit like this, and then keep whisking, it'll start to bring those eggs up to a warmer temperature, but not do it all at once where you're gonna scramble the eggs. Because if you start to scramble the eggs, then your custard is gonna have like little bits of scrambled egg in it. It's not a good look. Then once you kind of have it nice and liquefied like this, then you can go ahead and pour the whole thing in. All right, now this is gonna go back onto our stovetop because we need to cook these eggs so that they reach 165 degrees Fahrenheit. That will just cook off any of the bacteria that's in the raw egg. And as it starts to thicken, you might also want to turn the flame down a little bit just so you don't scorch the custard, because it'll get really thick on you in a matter of seconds, and you can also scorch it. So just keep it moving, adjusting the heat as needed, and you'll be good to go. All right, and as soon as it thickens up like this, just turn off the heat, because the residual heat from the burner is all you need. All right, and then we are going to add our 1/3 cup of lemon juice, and that will cool it down as well and start to thin it out. So you can see it's starting to thin and become more like a custard. The other thing that will smooth it out is some butter. So we're gonna take 1 tablespoon of butter. Mine's looking a little bit thick, so I might actually add a little bit more lemon juice to it, because that will thin it out as well. I wouldn't go overboard with the lemon juice because you don't want it too tart, but a little bit, like a tablespoon, isn't gonna hurt it much. It should drizzle like this in the pot. Then we are just gonna pour this into our cool tart tin, just like so. And then you can take an offset spatula and just smooth it out. And don't worry, if it's a little bit thick or clumpy in areas, we are going to hide this whole thing with a beautiful array of whipped cream dollops, so no one will ever know. Then you're going to keep this uncovered and place it in the refrigerator for a minimum of 1 hour, but you could also do overnight. You don't want to cover it with anything because condensation could form, and then you'll end up with little water droplets on your lemon curd. Now you could just put homemade whipped cream on top of this and call it a day, but if you wanted to do something a little bit more decorative, I have an idea for you. So I took my inspiration from all of the beautiful citrus blossoms that are exploding in my yard right now. We've had so many weeks of rain that I have all of these beautiful blossoms ready to burst. Most of them are still buds, but I do have one here that's an actual flower. So I'm gonna put that in the center. Now, if you don't have citrus blossoms growing in your yard, you can also use fresh mint. That would be pretty. So I have 2 pastry bags, each with a different pastry tip. One is a little bit of a rosette to represent the flower, and the other is just a little dollop to represent the bud. And I thought that would be pretty on the tart. But you really could do any decoration you like. Okay, so I am just going to do little rosettes all the way around the perimeter of the tart, and then the next row is going to be the dollops, and I'm going to put that kind of in between the rosettes so that you're sort of alternating. So this is just a really tiny little dollop. Go like that. And then you can get creative at this point and just haphazardly do a few more rosettes wherever there is room. You know, another thing that would be totally beautiful that would also be edible would be the edible pansies. So if you didn't have citrus blossoms and you didn't want to use the mint, you can go to your grocery store and look in the salad, like the produce aisle, and they oftentimes will have edible pansies in there, and that would be so gorgeous, the purple against the yellow. If any of you do that, you have to share it with me on Instagram. And then the next step is to use some of these little pearl candies. These are from Wilton. You can get them at your grocery store or online. I'll leave you a link. And then you just want to place these on the lemon curd just to give it a little bit more flourish. And when you bring this to the table, you will get so many oohs and ahs. You take that first bite and everybody will agree it was well worth the effort. Especially for a special occasion like Easter or Mother's Day. All right, you guys, I hope you give it a try and let me know what you think, and I'll see you back here next time. Until then, bye.